Hey, welcome to Stone Cold Stros. I'm Brandon Strange. I'm joined by Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. You can follow them on X at Palillo and at Josh Jordan 975. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Click like on the video. Get some that good juju to the hometown team. We are looking forward to the 2024 season, and we want you to be along for the ride with us. And as always, the full version of this podcast is available on your favorite podcast app. Gents, got a lot of news a surprising amount of news. Nothing big, but just a lot of updates from over the weekend. And so we probably just need to get right into this. Let's not belabor it. We saw an offensive outburst against the Nats, which the tone was set by one of those patented Altuve first pitch home runs. We saw Corey Julks has hit a second dinger of the Grapefruit League. Two more than Jeremy Pena for those that are keeping count. Chas McCormick, a spectacular defensive play in center. We also have Chandler Rome's projections on the opening day roster. And we can talk about the position player side of that. I guess let's start there. It's just no real surprises there except for John Singleton. I get Singleton is out of options. And look, this comes from a guy who was rooting for him and rooting for him to get called up last season. But outside of one great game in the regular season and a really nice postseason appearance where he worked a walk, I don't really understand why he's taking up a roster spot other than I guess maybe they don't have better options. Again, before I get slaughtered, I am rooting for Singleton. Not a knock against him. Guys, on just sticking to the offensive side of the ball, the guys that are holding the bats, what's any news or what stuck out to you from the past few days' updates?
Nothing dramatic. And I think for the Astros spring training, certainly in terms of the lineup, the biggest news is Joe Espada altering the construct of it. And he's kind of gone with the varsity lineup a couple of times, the top four a couple of times, more than that, with Altuve 1, Yordan 2, Bregman 3, Tucker 4. No one is having such a lousy spring that you're saying, does he need to have his eyes checked? Is there a problem here? No one's going so completely bananas that there's reason to get overly carried away with, hey, is this going to be a big star? Settle down. We're still in mid-March, or barely now into mid-March. So I think for the Astros, it's pretty much, on the offensive side, no news is good news. There are those edge spots on the roster. You reference John Singleton. It's a great personal story for him to get back to the major leagues at all. But I'm with you on the balance tipper being that he's out of options. What, is there going to be a big clamor to claim John Singleton if the Astros try to send him out? I mean, the Astros got him off the nothing heap when he flamed with the Brewers getting called up last year. And this is a guy in his early 30s. It's not like some team is thinking, well, 23 years old is this vast untapped power potential. If a team was to claim him, my thought would be good for John Singleton and good luck. Not that the Astros somehow blew it. But there is no clearly better alternative because the guy that Dana Brown traded for to possibly be that alternative, Trey Cabbage, has shown essentially nothing, meaning nothing good so far this spring.
Yeah, that's what I was going to hit on there. It was Trey Cabbage. A lot of power, 30 home run power. He can run. He can steal bases. There's a lot of talent to like there, but he's an older prospect in this spring. I was looking at Chandler Rome's column. He's 3 for 23 with 10 Ks. So, I mean, that's just not going to get it done, and they have more options with him. So it looks like, yeah, they're going to stick with Singleton. Gray Kessinger's going to be one of those utility guys, along with Dubon and Caratini. That all makes a lot of sense. This is just such a loaded team. There's not a whole lot of spots where you wonder what they're going to do, especially offensively. Pitching, kind of the same. So it's, that's the benefit of having a great team. There's only a couple roster spots that players can achieve and make. So we'll see how it plays out. But we know how baseball works. Over the course of the year, you're going to need a lot of different guys. It's a long, grueling season. So it's nice to have options.
Without real sink your teeth into storylines, the marginalia gets inflated, right? There's space to fill in print. That's still a thing. Certainly online columns, podcasts. But some people will turn spring training molehills into mountains, at least as talking points in the moment. Other than if you have a personal vested interest in one of the guys involved, you're an Astros fan, you shouldn't be sweating for 1 second. Cabbage or Singleton, Singleton or Cabbage, because if either plays a truly meaningful part in the fate of the 2024 Houston Astros, a whole lot would have gone wrong.
I guess what surprises me too is, and I know we've covered this, so we don't need to belabor it, but you've got Chaz. I mean, I touched on the open. Chaz makes a fantastic play in center defensively. And we've seen that. That's Chaz is a gamer when it comes to playing defense out in center, just in the outfield in general. You're a team that's coming off of being one game from the World Series, one home game away from the World Series. Again, I just wonder, like, do you guys? I guess we haven't really talked about this specifically, but are you surprised that we're still running back the Jake Meyers experiment? It was hard to kind of tell, like, in the previous regime, what was Dusty and what was Dana Brown pushing for. But Dusty's gone now, and now we've got Jake Meyers starting in center. Are you surprised we're still going back to that well, that this is something that, again, for a guy who is really in Chaz, that's really proven himself, that we're still doing the Jake Meyers thing?
Only mildly, for a couple of reasons. One, as an analytically bent organization, maybe a little less so, specifically with Dana Brown, than going back to Jeff Luhnow. And then if you want to include James Click in there. But all those defensive metrics on Meyers, and you balance that with the eye test and the on-field results, but all the defensive metrics do dictate that Meyers is the better center fielder between he and Chas McCormick. Two, they're going to need a fourth outfielder to take at least some playing time, because Yordan Alvarez is not going to be in left field every day. So, if they felt McCormick was their best center fielder, well, then Meyers would be getting time in left. Since they feel the inverse, it's Meyers in center and Chas will go to left for the most part, with Dubon mixed in a little bit, perhaps, in center. And then the other variable, which isn't big picture about the Astros being cheapskatey on the roster construction, right? They're clearly going to come in, barring some sort of bizarre sell-off in season, above the first competitive balance tax threshold. But it doesn't mean going to be willy-nilly with the last spots on the roster. And Jake Meyers is a still pre-arbitration salary. I have no doubt that factors into why he's still getting a little bit of favored nation status. I think if he had 3 years service time and was making $2.5 million this year, then Pedro Leon would have a much better chance, or a Joey Loperfido might have a real sleeper chance of making the club out of spring training. Instead, unless we get a couple of injuries these next couple of weeks, those guys basically have no chance.
I think it's also part of it's Minute Maid Park. That is a big center field. So they want somebody that can cover some ground out there, that has a good enough arm to get the ball in. And I think that's why Dusty favored Dubon. He has a good throwing arm, but they're going to give Jake Meyers every chance. Charlie kind of hit on it. He's inexpensive. They would like to get something out of him. It looked like before he got injured, he could really be something for the Astros in center field. And the injuries have slowed him down, and he didn't hit very well last year. So they're going to give him a chance. I would like to see Chaz out there more. It is an odd argument to me where, defense is so important, but Chaz is a better defender than Yordan, but you're going to play Yordan a lot in left field. It's not like Yordan's a poor defender, but I would feel better with Chaz out there. But I think it is part of that center field thing. It's a huge center field. They want somebody that can cover ground. That's probably the best thing Jake Meyers does, is he can really run, chase down balls in the outfield.
And throw in the work with the sports psychologist. So they're hoping a door is unlocked to take Jake Meyers back to pre-shoulder injury in Chicago against the White Sox. And look, we're talking about the guy who's going to bat ninth. So it's not as if they're saying, hey, Jake Meyers, you have speed. Really get it together. Ratchet up that on-base percentage. You're our leadoff batter, kid. Go get him. He's going to bat ninth. Jake Meyers could fall on his face, and he'll still give you better offensive production than the Astros have gotten out of the ninth spot the last 3 years.
I knew you were going to go there. I knew it. I would have won. I would have won the bet easily where you were going to take that.
As predictable as Martin Maldonado's offensive output.
Well, my perspective is just that you have a Dubon for depth too. He's projected to make this roster as well on the bench, and Dubon's a capable outfielder as well. But I'm with you. If they can get pre-shoulder injury Myers back, that guy looked like he was headed places, and it just seems like it wasn't just his shoulder that he left hanging out there in Chicago. It seems like his confidence was also still out there on that Chicago wall, and if he can get that back and find it, then he had a nice trajectory and looked like he was going to be another one of those unheralded players from the farm system that comes out of nowhere and becomes something kind of like Chas McCormick. On the pitching side of things, we had some updates. JP France has added a new sinker to his arsenal. Altuve has worked with him on this pitch just from a feedback standpoint, holding the bat and watching it. And Altuve had glowing things to say about it, said this is really going to fit nice into his repertoire. Of course, Altuve is going to say that. He's a nice guy. But we know last year France was 11-6 with a 3.83 ERA in 24 games, but his final 8 games posted over a 5, almost a 6 ERA at 5.84. We saw Spencer Arrighetti, Forrest Whitley get set down. I guess just to tee it off to you guys, let's talk about the arms and updates that stood out to you. But who do you think makes it up back sooner? Do you think Arrighetti or Whitley?
Well, I think if the Astros don't run into any further injuries in their starting rotation, Arrighetti will get some seasoning, if not an entire season at AAA. Whereas if they have a knee in the bullpen and Whitley gets off to a halfway decent start, since the final couple of guys in the bullpen are very questionable going into the season, I might lean to Whitley in that respect. On JP France, I'm curious. Can he command the new pitch, which really is the question with all his repertoire? Control was a problem for JP France throughout his minor league career, extremely impressively, and for the Astros, fortuitously. His command was better when he joined the Astros than it ever had been over the course of his minor league career, but that tapered off late, whether through a professional high in innings or water finding its level, regression to his career mean, whatever it would be. So if France is going to stick as a back end of the rotation guy, he's going to need command. And if you can add one more weapon to that arsenal, good for him. And while talking about guys who you think of as back end of the rotation, but maybe bumps up to the mid given health maladies, certainly starting the season with no Verlander. Jose Urquidy. I mean, we're talking still just 9 spring training innings, but off his injury-plagued and then not very good 2023 so far, so very good for Jose Urquidy this spring.
Yeah, maybe there is something with Urquidy and getting over the tip pitches and him getting it going this year. With JP France, I'm kind of reminded of, with Altuve sitting in there with France. It reminds me of, remember when Oswalt went away from the two-seamer and went back to his four-seam fastball, and a lot of reason for that was Lance Berkman standing in the box and Berkman telling Oswalt, man, I feel like it's harder to get to your four-seam fastball. That pitch is more impressive to me. And Oswalt went back to the four-seamer and had a lot of success with that. In this circumstance, it's France adding the two-seamer, the sinker. But what's interesting about that pitch for JP is all his other stuff, his sliders and his cutters and curveballs, they all break away from a right-handed hitter. With this pitch, it tails in a little bit on a right-handed hitter, so guys can't automatically kind of dive out over the plate. So this could actually really benefit JP France. So I'm excited to see that. The other one I'm excited about is the changeup for Christian Javier. You don't just have to guess fastball or curveball with him. If he's getting swing and miss with that changeup, you're going to have to respect that a little more. And I talked about it in a video last year. I felt like Javier was so predictable. If it was up, it was going to be a fastball. If it was down, it was going to be an off-speed pitch. So with the changeup coming in, you don't want to throw high changeups, but you can throw them for strikes, and the thigh high, lower down to the knees. They're better off when they're tailing off out of the strike zone. That's the best way to get your changeup, get some swing and miss there. But I just think it gives you one more wrinkle, one more pitch you got to think about with Javier, where you can't solely go out there and just hunt fastballs, or if you just want to go up there and try and hit the slider, you think he's going to give you just kind of a get you over breaking ball to get a quick strike. You can do that. But when you mix in the changeup, now it's not 50-50 anymore. So if he can locate that pitch and really command it, get some good movement on it, that could be huge for him this year.
Hey, just to be clear on Roy Oswalt, that's the former Savannah Banana Roy Oswalt you're talking about?
Yeah, that's him.
That was quite the blast over the weekend. And Roger Clemens, even though he got lit up 61 years old, few extra pounds, but he still looked like Roger Clemens on the mound.
Yeah, and Oswalt's 12-6 curve looks like my fastball, so there is that. I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, I knew you were going to hit on the Javier. You are the Javier fan, president of the Javier fan club, Josh, and with good reason, because if they can get Christian Javier right, he is one of their most devastating weapons. And yeah, it wasn't just that they could guess what was coming with him based on location. It's that, because he's always had just the same two pitches, but it was also that, when we would text each other during games, so like, stop throwing it down the very middle of the plate.
Yeah.
It was middle. It wasn't just that. And when Javier's at his best, it's when he can use that four seamer at the top of the zone, and he's hiding the ball well, and it's really hard to square up with hitters. And he was just throwing it like BP fastball last season. And if he can, again, just give them something, give batters something else to think about in the strikes. And also, too, I think if it's about his endurance, too, it would seem to be. If his conditioning is better this season, then I would hope that bodes well for him as well. Charlie, anything else that you noticed out of the arms update wise, besides Roger and Royo recapturing some magic over the weekend?
Nothing alarm bell ringing. I'll just piggyback your point on not really the secret other component or hidden other component, but component of wildness. You think of pitchers, you think, oh, he can't find a strike zone. He's walking guys. He's always falling behind 2-0, 3-1. That's all problematic. But wild can mean in the strike zone where you're leaving too many pitches, inner third to a power hitter or right down the heart when you're trying to pitch at least to the outer edge of the strike zone a little bit. And that speaks to, along with a little bit of just fall off in his raw stuff last season, to why Javier was bitten a lot by that home run bug.
Yeah, and finally, just on Javier, another important update. He's working in the slide step off the mound, trying to hold guys at first base a little better. He was in top 10, one of the worst pitchers at holding guys at first base last year. So they're working in that side step because he'll walk guys from time to time. We know that about Javi. You can't have him just walk a guy to lead off an inning and then it's an automatic he takes second base where you're just basically giving up doubles every time you walk somebody. So it's great. Joe Espada talked about that. He's like, we're seeing improvement. The slide step's working. He's doing a better job holding guys on. I think that'll be huge. And the other thing with Javi, just if he could ever just be able to locate a little better, like at the knee, not just every fastball has to be letter high. If he could spot some pitches on the outside corner, inside corner, he did a lot of that in the World Series against the Phillies. We don't really remember that, but there was, he had some called strikes looking at the knee, outside corner. If he could mix that in with this changeup and that high heat, I think that'll be effective. The other big update we haven't mentioned, Verlander throwing in the bullpen, ramping it up, getting into the lower 90s, starting to show more intensity in his throwing in the bullpen on the sides. So that's very good news for the Astros. And I don't know if we even talked about the Garrett Cole stuff. This could be interesting, right, with the opening day.
Yeah, ceremonial first pitches only, perhaps, from Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole, as the Yankees, whose rotation is replete with more question marks than the Astros. They lose Cole, who won the Cy Young Award, led the league in innings pitched, and is great and has been sensationally durable. But he's 33 years old now. Yankee fans have to be holding their breath really hard on that. Last year, give or take this time, I think we had unanimity that over under on Framber, I think, was 14.5 wins. And we thought, not only was a lock to win 20, but over 14.5 seems a good play. It's why it's called gambling, kids. Always bet with your head, not over it. If one Astro pitcher this year, let's set the number at 15.5. If only one of their starters is to win 16 plus, who are you taking?
We'll see about that elbow with Garrett Cole. Obviously, they're going to do MRI and see what's going on with the elbow. Hopefully, it's nothing for his sake. Hopefully, it's nothing terrible. A lot of question marks around some of those guys. One guy that's not a question mark around, Angel Hernandez, looking in midseason form already. Ejected Lance Lynn. If you haven't seen that clip, I'd say we can't spend any time talking about it here, but if you haven't seen it, ejected Lance Lynn twice from the same game. So, we talk about guys having up and down seasons. Angel Hernandez, the picture of consistency every season after season. So that's going to be it for part 1 of Stone Cold Stros. To listen to the full podcast, it is available right now at your favorite podcast provider. And to watch the rest of this conversation on YouTube, just come check back tomorrow. We'll have it posted in the Stone Cold Stros playlist. And as always, go Stros.